All right, good afternoon, and thank you for coming to today's Brown Bag. My name is John Fritz. I work here at UMBC in the Division of Information Technology. We're asking a lot of our speaker today because she just chaired the USM Pedagogy and Technology Committee meeting for the last 2 hours. And I thought it was a great idea to kind of piggyback on top of that and say, well, why don't you then talk about what you're doing at Maryland? But I'd forgotten how chatty we all are, so we didn't break in time here. But you all get that opportunity. But I want to thank Ellen Borkowski, who's the Director of Academic Support at College Park's Office of Information Technology. I've already told you she is also the chair of the USM Pedagogy and Technology Committee and is also my co-chair for the Maryland Blackboard Users Group, which will next be at College Park on April 23rd. And followed by Ellen's own conference on teaching innovations and learning on the next day. So we're doing a lot of tag teaming and we're doing a lot of multitasking, but it's nice to be able to have Ellen up here. Ellen is also the project manager for the course evaluation project, and so she'll be able to share what they're doing down there. I've encouraged Ellen that this will be informal as well. It's an opportunity to see what another campus is doing. I would encourage you to ask questions, as we go along here. It'll also give Ellen a chance to get something to eat as well. But maybe, so we'll see how it goes. But join me in welcoming Ellen to today's Brown Bag. So, thank you.
Okay, so although I'm on the IT side, I've been kind of involved in the overall process since the beginning. So I'm not going to do a techie presentation. Today's more to do the whole process of how College Park ended up where we are. I can't talk to all the details about what happened in the Faculty Senate, but I'll try to do my best to give you kind of why did we end up going here and why we're doing it online and such. So I'll give you some background on the project. More details are actually on a website that I'll give you at the very end. Talk a little bit about the instrument that was developed and highlight just a few of the requirements that were given to us in terms of looking at technology solutions, and then really walk you through the process we go through now each semester and what happens, and give you a few screenshots so you get a sense of what students are seeing. So you may or may not know that at College Park, since we're so big and decentralized, course evaluations have always actually been traditionally decentralized. Every college had their own set of items. Some had a few, some had a lot. Some were really broken down even at the department level. Several years ago, students actually asked the University Senate if they could do a university-wide instrument could be developed and then deployed online. So it was, it was when Pick-a-Prof became big. They wanted a Pick-a-Prof service, but an official one from the university then going to Pick-a-Prof. So it took our University Senate 3 years to do that. Which may feel fast, actually, but 3 years. So in April 2005 is when the task force finally presented to the University Senate a report, the recommended items and process. And so it was then approved and in 2006, and we were then formed a committee to talk about implementation. The challenge, to us at least in from the technology side, was it was actually approved in April 2006 with the statement that it would be deployed in the fall of 2006. And we, of course, looked at them and said, are you kidding us? So we actually did get an extension of a year, but actually that year wasn't really even long enough, but that's what we were given. So in the midst of all this happening, our own campus, College Park, was going through an RFP for a new learning management system to be deployed at the university level, because we were running both WebCT and Blackboard back then. So once this was decided and handed to us, we actually had to also then wait for the process of the learning management system to be decided, because potentially we could deploy it in that. So there was some delay in deciding on technology because of that, but not too much. So the owner of this process is actually our Institutional Research Planning and Assessment Office. So they deal with all the communication to campus and departments. They make decisions about which functional requirements we're going to deploy and such. And on our side, I'm involved as the project manager along with my colleague in administrative enterprise applications, because they develop the actually reporting side of this process. I have the, I guess, honor of being the project manager, because in the past we have piloted online course evaluations in the UMBCtube tool with our College of Math, Physical Sciences. You know, when they came to us and wanted to do online themselves, we actually did it in UMBCtube. So that's how I kind of ended up in the role of project manager in OIT. We did select Blackboard. As you're aware, we're a Blackboard institution now. We had a long discussion with Blackboard and decided Blackboard was not the way we were going to deploy the tool. So we had to do, in a very short amount of time, kind of quick review of all the commercial products. They couldn't do what we wanted, so we jumped in and said, okay, we're going to have to develop our own, but let's not do it by ourselves. So you know, the one technology component I'm going to talk about is that we deployed a Sakai tool, so that we're not on our own developing a tool. We're working with other similar institutions that have similar needs. So the first piece of what the Senate question, course evaluation, that all courses at the university get. Because students wanted some of the results to be public, there's a subset of questions that are only available in terms of results to students. The lawyers got involved, obviously, and part of the course evaluation is used for APT reviews for faculty. Therefore, it's considered part of their personnel record and can't be public. So there's a different set of questions that administrators get to view, and a separate set of questions for students to be able to view. Okay, and they each can't see each other. So administrators cannot see results of the student questions. Students cannot see results of the APT questions. Okay, and the only person who actually gets to see the results of all of them are the instructor. Okay, so it's kind of, is that not working?
Battery just went out.
Oh, old technology, right? Battery. Okay. All right, so so we have that complication on the reporting side. There's no complication on deploying the questions, but when we talk about the reporting side, we have this complication of separating out who gets to see what, when, okay? So there are questions for APT review, 2 questions that are course-related items, which basically means we only have to ask the question once for the section of the course. 4 instructor items that can be duplicated for the however number of instructors are being evaluated. And then on the student side, there's actually 4 course items and 3 instructor items. There's one question about where it fits in the academic plan, and that's, I think, more from the assessment side, that they wanted to be able to differentiate. We don't do it right now in the reporting tool, but there's, you know, future request is to be able to differentiate and see the results based on majors and non-majors. So they wanted to capture that within the questionnaire. So here's where our particular need at Maryland kind of complicated looking at commercial tools. Because they wanted to be able to, in a sense, replace any system that a college may have been using to deploy course evaluation, we needed a system centrally that could do everything that the colleges did. So we needed to have this level of what we're calling hierarchy to deploy questions. Not only the 15 university questions, but allow colleges to add in their questions that they want to have, go down to the department level, let departments ask questions that they want for their department, and then at the end, the instructor to add questions. So that's complicated both on the front end to deploy and also on the back end when you talk about reporting. The system obviously has to integrate into our student information system, so we wouldn't have to figure out some weird way to populate course enrollments at the end of the term. The request was that student responses be confidential but not anonymous, and the reason for that is the assessment office wants to be able to run different kind of demographic reports for themselves to understand kind of what types of students are, you know, answering which way, so they want to be able to cut the data into multiple different ways. So, but they will be the only ones who actually have access to that actual linkage between a student's answers and the actual student. No one else will be allowed to have access to that particular set of data. If we do have more than one instructor, the system has to be able to display the instructor items multiple times. And for the students, it should be easy for them to log in and just have their list of evaluations that they need to take. We decided that courses that have less than 5 students won't be evaluated, because then you have the problem of not really being anonymous with such a small class size. So these are kind of key functional requirements we looked at. There's a whole list of others that I didn't bother to list because there are a lot of kind of fine detail things. But these are kind of the drivers when we looked at commercial tools. And the big thing was none of the commercial tools could do that hierarchy piece for us. They were all more than willing to program it for us, but none of them had the out of the box for us, which is why we went down the path of developing our own. So here's how the process works at College Park. We actually keep the evaluation open for 2 weeks at the end of the term. The last day that it closes is our study day, so they're not allowed to have access to evaluations during finals because they don't want the evaluations to actually be affected because they just took an awful final exam and then, right, really evaluate the professor very poorly. So we open up, when it opens, one mass email goes out to students from the provost's office saying it's open and evaluate, and encourage them to fill in their evaluations and give them a link to the website. And then when reminders come out, there's actually individual emails sent out for each evaluation the student has not completed. So if they have 5 evaluations to do and they've not done any of them by the first reminder day, they will get 5 emails. Each one is customized, so it will display which course and section they haven't done it for. So they are different emails, although they complain that they're all the same emails. They're different because we do tell them which one has not been filled in. The assessment office decided that it would be every 3 days that we send reminders. And then we kind of watch the return rates and kind of decide at the very end whether we switch it to a daily. So last fall, we did every 3 days, but then the last 3 days, because it ended on a Sunday, we actually sent a reminder Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The students don't like it. They complain that we're spamming them, but we watch, you watch the evaluation numbers spike after each email in terms of the numbers being submitted. So they work, but they complain about it. But it's easy enough, obviously, for them to filter if they really want to. So we decided we were going to continue the email. Now, how do we get students to actually fill in these evaluations? The actual task force from the Senate came up with this 2-tiered incentive program for students. First, in order for a student to actually get access to the reports when the semester is over, they have to have already filled in all of their evaluations that are on their list. So if they have 5 to do and they only do 4, they won't get access to the reporting system to see the results. Second tier is that for a course's actual results to be made public in the reporting tool, the section, in this case the section itself, has to have a 70% return rate. Okay, so the hope is, one, they'll understand that they need to participate if they want to see results, and they need to encourage all their classmates to participate so that the whole class's results will be made available. And then as I mentioned before, instructors are the only ones who can view all the items for their own courses in the reporting tool. Administrators get an administrative view, and I'll briefly describe for you what that looks like in a moment. Now, the first year that we did open up this system, the student government was involved because obviously students were the folks who asked for this system. So they helped in the PR, Diamondback articles. They actually did do a drawing for, I think, an iPod that first year, but that was the only time that first semester. So that was the one thing they did to try and open it up. And we'll talk about results in a minute. Return rates are okay, not at the level yet that our provost is happy with, but we're trying to work on how to increase that. Sure.
Do I understand there is an open window of time that students can take to complete their evaluations?
Right, there's a 2-week window.
So if, in your example, if I have done 4 evaluations, but I have a 5th left open, is that open indefinitely for me to view so that I can see the results for the next semester's classes?
Right, so this, in the reporting tool, every semester since we started is available. Okay, but if I'm a student who last fall did not do all my evaluations, I can't get in now to see any results. Okay. So every semester I need to be doing all of them, basically. Just because one semester I did them all of them doesn't give me access in the future to the reporting tool.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes.
Sorry. For first-year students, do they just automatically get to see it? Or?
Yes, first-year students, we kind of still working out with the registrar how exactly to define who the first-year students are, because we have transfer students and all that. So We still kind of been working out the kinks in that part, but yeah. So this semester, all new students who obviously didn't have a chance to do evaluations last semester would be included in terms of access. And that's kind of the freebie to go, hey, look what you get access to, and then go, and by the way, next semester, you need to do all your evaluations this semester, and then next semester you'll still get access to the results. So, and they have a link to it when they're going to register for classes. There's a link to the reporting tool so they can go in and check out stuff before they register. Okay, so here's our timeline. We piloted in the summer of '07 with summer school because we wanted to work with only small number of classes and see how it would work. And we only piloted the university questions at that time. This was more to test the actual Sakai technology than it was about the university instrument itself. We were just kind of going, okay, is this technology really going to work for us? We, found some bugs, but worked out the kinks. We were able to deploy just fine in the summer. So we went fall to, we still called it pilot in fall, but it was university-wide in the fall. All sections got the university items, and at the time, because we were kind of doing one piece at a time, they were only allowed to have the official instructor of record evaluated. So only one instructor per section was evaluated for the fall '07 semester. In spring, we wanted to add the next level of hierarchy. So we added college items for 3 pilot colleges who agreed to take the jump and add their questions into the survey. And we turned on the multiple instructor functionality because there was a big push from some of the colleges to be able to evaluate their TAs. Right now the system doesn't have a separate TA question functionality, but the colleges were all in agreement that we could use the same instructor questions but use it to evaluate the TA. So we had to have a way to allow the departments to mark off the TAs in addition to the instructor. So what we ended up doing is in our student information system, an additional field was added called Be Evaluated. Department schedulers are given timelines and reminders from the assessment office. By this date, make sure you've gone in and marked off who you want to have be evaluated, or if you want to unmark people you don't want evaluated, by X date you have to do that. So by default, the instructor of record is the one person defaulted as yes to evaluate. Yes?
So you said these were kind of called pilot semesters?
Right.
Were old evaluations still passed out in different units, do you know, at the same time that these new ones were being?
Yes, some, actually even as of today, some colleges still do, we're calling shadow systems, whether they're paper or separate online.
Okay.
Part of the fall semester pilot too was testing the instrument itself. So the assessment office was doing their evaluation of reliability, validity, and all that stuff to make sure the 15 they had were going to work. So it was kind of a two-pronged, doing the technology, but also them making sure the instrument itself was solid and they didn't need to do any kind of rewording or anything like that. So spring '08, we did that. In this past fall, we continued. We now have 7 colleges and schools at College Park that have their questions and the multiple instructor functionality. We do have the challenges for each of the semesters is unfortunately our overall return rate for the campus is going down instead of up. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, why we think that's happening. So questions about kind of our deployment and what we did for each of the semesters. Okay,
I'm
yes.
curious, in terms of, you mentioned that some of the colleges are still using separate forms. Is that because they want to do something different in terms of APT, or is it something that it's okay to supplement what is being done with the university?
Yeah, it's partly because we don't have all the functionality built in the tool yet. So some of the colleges don't actually have college-wide items to ask. And we have not gone down to the department level yet in the hierarchy for deployment. Some of them are more concerned about TA questions, different TA questions, and so they're doing the TA piece on paper and the rest of it online. Colleges and schools don't have a choice about this. They have to do this, okay? That came out of the provost's office. You have to use this system. If you want to supplement, you can do that until all the functionality is built into the tool. Now, some are actually doing shadow. So the business school, for example, physically gives the students a piece of paper in class of the surveys. That's the exact same one that's online, but they ask them to do it in class and somehow ask them to do it online. And the anecdotal stories I've already heard from the business schools, they're not bothering to do it online because they just did it in class on a piece of paper. So now the assessment office is strongly, trying to get them to finally go, you don't need this, shadow, the system works, you don't need this paper version to give you the results you need, you can get it from online. So, so their return rates are low, we suspect, because they're doing the shadow system, where they're obviously getting a better, they've got the captivated audience in class because the students are there, so give them a piece of paper. But they're hurting the overall results for campus when we look at the online system. Yes?
So if they're using the same instruments physically and online, are the results comparable?
I haven't asked the assessment office if the business school's given them that information. I think it is. I'm sure it probably is, because if it wasn't, they probably would have been fighting to be off the system by now. They're the only ones who've pushed in terms of the number of questions too, because we decided, even though the system allows for more, we decided we should limit the colleges to 10 items to add in addition to the 15 university items. And of course, the business school said we need more than 10. So I didn't get a chance to print this one out, but just to give you a sense, the business school has an additional 8 course questions and 16 instructor questions. So think about that for a second, right? 16 plus the 7 already in the university for instructor, that will get repeated if you have 3 instructors for a section, okay? Engineering has only 16 course questions, so they only see an additional 16 period. Our public policy ended up adding 12 course questions and 10 instructor items. So what happened this past fall was a survey could potentially be as small as 22 items and as large as looks like 39, as large as 62 in total, depending on how many instructors were marked to be evaluated for a section. So obviously, and one of the things that the assessment office decided in terms of settings was students were required to answer all questions before they could submit. Okay, there's an NA option, but it's not selected by default, so they would have to go through and literally click the 62 radio buttons before they click submit. Yes?
Is there a way to set it up so that the secondary instructors, you don't have to answer as many questions for? Like for my TAs, I only want these 3 questions.
There will be. There's, we had asked for the functionality to do a separate set of TA questions, which have been added to the latest version of the software. We're just now getting that loaded to test it and figure out if it all works right and all that kind of stuff. So, so that will be coming, so that you could have a different subset for TAs. Yes, that might help. But yes, right. Okay, so just to give you some screenshots, this is what the students this past fall would see when they got to the website. The verbiage and all this that you see in the opening page is from our assessment office that encourage them, obviously, to participate. They log in with their directory ID and password that we use for all the other systems. And this is a sample, so these are Ellen test courses, so you can tell this. I ran this on our test server. But this is a sense of how the students get their list. When they sign in, there'll be 4 or 5, depending on how many courses they're in. And all they have to do is actually click on the name of the course, and it will open up. Now, of course, the survey is too long for me to do one screen capture, so I'm going to show you pieces of it so you can understand what you see. So here's the piece that's the course questions for the university, how it gets displayed for the students. So the sets that use the strongly agree to disagree scale are put together. They have a couple that are these appropriate, too high, too low, appropriateness scale, an effort scale, and then the open comments and where it fits in their program. So this is always going to be the first set they see, and it's labeled as the University of Maryland in terms of the questions they're seeing. If they have college items, which in this case for chemical and life sciences, they only had 1 course question, which was actually an open-ended question. This would then, if you thought of the last screen, this shows up then at the, right below the university course questions. So all course questions get shown first, since those are only asked once. Now, if there's an instructor, we do pull the name, so the instructor shows up there. No guarantee the student actually reads that, but the instructor name is there. And then, again, the University of Maryland questions are provided first. And then in this, the same example with chemical and life sciences, there are 4 instructor questions are then shown below, labeled as the college questions, so they understand these are the separate ones. Okay, and then they get their submit button. And we had problems with students emailing, going, oops, I thought I was evaluating, course X, and I wasn't, and I clicked submit. Can I, undo it or whatever? And of course, they can't undo it. We can remove them on the back end. So, because this button used to just say submit evaluation, so we added to the code so that we put the name of the course into the button itself. Not that that helps either, because students still don't read, but it helped a little. But we still do get the number of students who email after the fact going, I did the wrong instructor, can you remove it? Now, one thing is the system itself allows you to remove if you want to give them the option to redo, but the assessment office made the decision that they weren't going to allow that to happen, so you can only submit one. So it's not like the system can't do it. It's just the assessment office decided they didn't want to allow the students to put one in and maybe have a bad exam with the instructor and want to go back and redo their course evaluation. Here's the engineering school examples just to show you. They did only course questions. We allowed them to have 16 because these are 16 ABET questions, which they obviously need, so we allowed them to go over the 10. But just so you have a sense of how that's displayed. And again, this would be the chunk that would show up below the university questions. So any questions on the deployment side?
So there's no sense of that they can save their work and come back to an evaluation? It's
Nope,
a one-session
Yep, one
evaluation?
time only. Yeah, I don't think we've had too many requests to save and come back. Then we had one particular student, I think our first semester, who timed out because she was taking a lot of time to think about her comments and we didn't realize, I think the timeout at that first semester was like 20 minutes. We didn't think they were going to need more than 20 minutes, right? So we had one student who was spending so much time on her comments that she didn't realize how long she was taking. So we have increased that time, but otherwise it's still just the one time.
Ellen?
Yes?
They have 5 evaluations. I think they have to do them all at the same time.
No, that they can do,
So
come
they
back,
start one
right.
and they go back.
Right, so they could do one and come back the next day and do the next one. For them, the challenge is if they hit a reminder day, then they'll get emails for all the ones they haven't done yet. So, yes.
So clear. If they go into this and say, oh, I don't have the time to do this, they could go out and then come back.
Right, as long as they
Right,
don't
as long
click
as they
that
didn't
submit
submit.
button, right. But it means they have to come back and redo any of the ones they had filled in before, right. Other questions about deploying? Now, yes, go ahead.
I'm still not clear on what's the top end of the number of questions that you anticipate you might be
It
deploying?
depends on each semester, because like the number I gave you, the 62, was there was one course in one college that actually had marked 5 people, 5 instructors to be evaluated. So that the number of instructors affects it because it was in the business school. So remember, the business school had 16 instructor questions in addition to our 6 at the university level that was duplicated 5 times.
So each school has unlimited number of questions they can ask? Or?
No, we don't limit in the software to anything, but the assessment office has told them 10. Now, of course, the business school pushed back and wanted more than 10. Others have been very good about staying under the 10. So it depends on the school and the assessment's office willingness to be towing the line or not towing the line with them, but that's obviously not an IT issue, it's their issue. But so they're the ones who've talked with each school's kind of designated to determine how many they end up wanting. So we actually have several schools with more than 10, which in my opinion is affecting the return rate, because you tell a student to sign in, they see 62 questions, you think they're going to do it? I personally don't think so, but so that's part of the challenge with the discussion in terms of hierarchy levels. Like I said before, we're only doing university and college. We haven't even gone down to department level yet, so just think about how many more we might be adding when we go down there. Yes?
Those additional questions need to be open-ended, or you need to have one specific scale, or they can create any scale for each one of those questions?
They potentially could create their own scale, but the assessment office is strongly recommending they use the same scale that the university items are, so that the scales don't keep switching up on the students is one thing, but also We have not committed on the reporting side to report out means and standard deviations to anything but the 5-point university scale. So if they pick something else, they'll have to do their own calculations. So, yes.
So each item only has one, or each thing you're trying to find out only has one question, so you can't do a correlation to see whether or not an answer really is what you think it is, or what the student thinks it is. You know, a lot of surveys have like 5 ways of asking the same question and correlating those results to ensure you get the answer correct when you read the survey. This
Yeah,
doesn't
they
have
did
built
that.
in.
That kind of assessment of the instruments was done the first semester that we deployed. The assessment office, the website I give you at the end will have their report on that. They actually determined that you only have to ask one question of the students that will give you the rating that they get from all the 15 you ask them. That's what they came up with. But of course, you're not going to get anybody to agree that there's only one question you have to ask them. So, but their analysis was that you could really ask one item and really get the accurate reflection of what students feel and rate the instructor. So, okay. Other question about the deployment end. And so in terms of the tool itself, it actually has hierarchy built into it. So we populate the university's hierarchy in there, and then so the software takes care of going, oh, you're an engineering class, here's your 16 questions, you're a BSOS class, here's your BSOS questions. So we don't have to, I don't have to work in the system to build, 7 different kinds of surveys. I build one survey with one template that has all the questions in it, but they're marked into the different hierarchy levels, which BSOS questions, which business questions, which engineering, and then the software is smart enough to know which ones to deploy. So, yes?
Are you implementing any of this for the mini semesters, like?
Right now it's just fall and spring and summer.
Okay, so.
Hopefully
none of the
winter
courses-
soon, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the back-end process to explain why we don't do it. We've had a request to do it mid-fall and mid-spring because there are some courses that apparently run only for like the first half of the semester. But they are all asked to evaluate at the end of the semester. So on the reporting end, I'm going to give you a few snapshots, but I couldn't give you like all the data, obviously. So I'm going to, but this is hopefully enough screenshots to give you a sense of what they see on the back end. The reporting tool itself, we chose not to do within the Sakai tool. We've actually developed separately as a web in Java as a web tool, along with all the other enterprise apps that we have already. So partly because we had this complication of only a subset of questions are available to students and a certain other questions to administrators. The Sakai tool itself is not smart enough to do that. It just shows you all the questions, so we couldn't do it from the Sakai end. So this is what it looks like for a student when they log into the reporting tool. They have the ability to, which we learned from the Pick a Prof service, to either go, I want to find Math 140 and type it in and search for all of the Math 140s for all the semesters available, or I want to look for an instructor. Or they can do it the old-fashioned way and go to a semester and then kind of drill down college, department, find the course. Okay, so we give them multiple ways to actually get to the results. This one I did was to search for Math 140. So this shows you, since we started in Fall 07, all the Math 140 sections. The ones where you see the 2 names are when they've designated probably an instructor and a TA, or most of these right now have actually not been multiple instructors and an instructor and TA. So then they can choose which one they want to click on. I obviously won't tell you which one they clicked on, but here's the snapshot of what the students see in terms of reporting, which will be similar to the administrators, so that I didn't want to, because I can't give you administrator numbers without kind of revealing somebody. So, so these are all the student questions. We give them the number of responses because students can do NA, so we obviously pull those out. The numbers, and then mean and standard deviation, and we do a college comparison mean because for the administrators, we actually do cut them across 100, 200, 300 level courses in addition to department level. And then for the ones that are not that 5-point scale, we just provide the percentages for each of the ones that are selected. Okay, so that's what the students get to see. Yes?
So, with these means, this is not so easy to understand immediately. So this mean.
Okay, so the scale
Which one is the course mean, and what does course really mean here?
Yeah, so this, first off, because I didn't get it, I couldn't kind of grab the note on the bottom. The scale is It's a 5-point scale, but the numeric is actually 0 to 4, 4 being highest. The history on that, very briefly, is our new provost was the former engineering dean, and in his college, he ran all his course evaluations 0 to 4. So when we got to the university level, they didn't go 1 to 5, they were all 0 to 4. And he said that all the other faculty will learn to understand 0 to 4. So what the provost says, we do, right? So this mean and standard deviation is the mean for this particular question. The college comparison mean is for, in this particular college, this is a Math 140, so all the 100 level courses mean for this particular item, if that makes sense. So you compare how this instructor got 2.82, but the college level mean was 3.1 for this question for a 100 level course.
Okay, so 100 level courses.
Right, right. For this college, not university-wide.
My question was actually on this instructor mean. Now, if 140 has 2 discussion sections, then have you already combined those 2 discussion sections?
In this view, no. There's just the one section of 0113. So you're seeing one individual section here. There is a different view we're actually still working on, is what we're calling the roll-up views, so that all the sections of 140 can be viewed as one mean rather than each individual section.
Well, not necessarily all sections by that instructor.
Right, we also have that cut, yes. So it depends, right? The search I did was by course, so it did each individual one. If you did it by instructor, then it would combine all the courses by that one instructor. And you'll see a different number. I didn't actually take a screenshot of that, so I apologize for that. But yes, you can, there's actually multiple ways to cut the data in terms of looking at it. So, yes, did you?
When a student searches for a course, do you only display clickable links to courses that have a 70%?
Right, so only the list that you saw are only the sections that have the 70% return rate,
Okay.
or above, yeah.
Right.
Which can get confusing when you start doing the roll-up discussion, right? Because some of the sections might not have 70, and I can't remember if they decided on roll-ups if it was going to be. I think what they decided was they looked at the overall return rate of all the sections combined, and if that was 70, then the roll-up was available. I think we've gone through so many rounds with them in terms of numbers and what numbers mean, so I get confused sometimes on the reporting side. So that was the student view. For the administrator, when they log in, we didn't give them the search function. Don't ask me why, but we didn't give them the search function. They start off by deciding which semester they want to go in. And once they get there, if you're the provost, you get this view, which is you get to see a university summary and you get to access to all the college summaries. And actually, the provost gets to drill down to every instructor if he actually so desired. The university summary, I'm not going to give you the numbers because I couldn't quite cut it without displaying, data that I probably shouldn't display. But they get a table. They can sort, the provost in this case could sort by college alphabetically or by score. Remember, he's the engineering dean, so he likes numbers. So he likes to sort them by who got the highest score. And for each of these questions, which are the instructor questions at the university level, he gets to see the means. He gets to know how many sections were involved in that calculation, the total number of evaluations submitted and enrollment, and the overall response rate for each college. You'll see that. For a dean, they can see the same view, but they don't get the university view. But at the college level, they see the same table listed by departments. Okay? And if you're a department chair, you see the same table, but you see it listed by course and instructor. And at each level, you can click and then drill down to the next level. So if I'm the provost, I could click on a college here and get to this level and see the list by department. And then I could click on the department level and see the course by section course and see how that worked out. And if he so desired, could click on an instructor's name and see that instructor's set of numbers. So hopefully that, it may not make as much, I probably should have done maybe a snapshot of 2 numbers to give you a sense, but these all end up being those between 0 and 4 numbers. And the provost mostly looks at I think the last number, which is the response rate number. So questions on that. So Yes, and the administrator views, the questions are only those, right? The 6 that were students, they don't get to see those questions and results. Yes.
I see, so on all of the questions, they're not, the answers, the results are not available to everyone.
No, only the instructor is the only one who sees all question results. The students see only the subset of 6 that were identified, or 7 that were identified for students to see only. So there's a separation. The administrators only see a certain subset, the students only see a certain subset, and then the instructor is the only one who actually sees both. Because obviously the instructor should see the student ones too to help them improve on their course, right? But the administrator, because the lawyers decided that APT questions are part of the personnel record and therefore not public, they cannot use the public questions in any way to influence how they're viewing that instructor. They can only see, so they can only see the APT results to use that for that review process. Okay, other questions on the reporting side? It gets really complex, and what we're working on right now on the reporting side, because as you had asked, the reports are all at that section level right now, and so we've been working on what they're calling the roll-ups. So that Math 140 often has 10 sections. So they don't want to have to go and figure out calculating those 10 sections on their own. They want that rolled up view of all 10. So we're working on that. Part of the problem for us right now is that a lot of the reporting side of this is very much a manual process. We have a DBA who does the extract. He runs all his different scripts to come up with all these numbers, and then the reporting tool displays. And so it's not automated yet because they're still changing the system on us, right? So we can't automate it yet because they keep, every college adds their own kinds of questions, and so then we have to wait. And so we're going to kind of review the database structure actually right now, because some of what he's done, he's already said he would do differently if he'd known we were going to be doing these things now. So we're going to actually reevaluate right now while it's still early in the process and redo the database now, obviously then to do it later. So we'll be kind of looking at that. On the front end, it's also somewhat manual in that we do a freeze date, pull down the enrollments, and that's who gets the evaluations. But during that 2-week period, students could potentially still drop out of the course. But they're still going to be listed as someone who has to take the evaluation. Whether they actually go in and do it is up to them, but they'll get the email, they're in the counts and all that kind of stuff, because we don't kind of keep actively updating the numbers each day. Because that would, I think, wreak havoc on the return result numbers that we look at on a daily basis. So there's still problems in the process. That's partly why we can't do the mid-semester right now. It's hard enough to get the department schedulers to go in and mark who needs to be evaluated by the date we give them, right? So, because we still in the end go, but I wanted so-and-so to be evaluated. It's like, well, sorry, too late. System's already open. We can't add them now. So that's part of the challenge, because it's not the pieces that should be automated, and partly it's also a change in culture at the university, because department schedules aren't used to having to mark this kind of information. So, getting them up to speed to understand they have to go in, they got to talk to their department chairs, make sure the people who need to be evaluated are actually marked. Yes?
What was the response rate like before? When you were doing
Before, we don't have those numbers because the colleges all did them on their own, on paper and whatever. The only one I have a good sense of is engineering has pretty much stayed the same from what they were doing before. And that's probably because they did because they are very ABET driven. So because of that, they were very much ingrained in their students. This is really important for you to do and all this stuff. So their numbers stayed consistent.
Their numbers are higher than 40%?
Yes, this is the overall.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, they're more at 60-something percent. Actually, their numbers in summer are about 40% too, is what they told me.
Oh.
So we were okay in the summer. But the other colleges, what we discovered is actually some departments literally did the paper evaluations, and then it would be months before they got results, because they actually had a person flipping through each piece of paper, writing down the things, and hand calculating the results for them. While there are other departments who were ahead and did some online version, or did the Scantron sheets, right? So we had the whole gamut of them on our campus doing it the way they wanted. So, so the interesting thing is those who had to wait months for their results are suddenly going, how come our results aren't there tomorrow, right? Because it's all in the technology now. So part of the process is when we close the evaluation, we don't actually make results available until the official date from the registrar in terms of when faculty have to submit their grades. It opens after that, obviously, because we don't want faculty be affected by any grading by seeing results. So, you know, we don't actually open exactly after that day just yet because of all the manual stuff we're doing, but we got pretty close to that this last semester with the fall and opening the data up earlier this year. So summer one was our pilot semester, and here's a sense of how large we went. We did 350 course sections, and so our overall return rate, the numbers I have for you are only the overall campus-wide return rate, was 40.7, which we found out was actually about right for summer. Because summer has a lot of visiting students who probably don't care or don't activate their ID to sign in, and so it ended up that 40% was okay for summer. And here's summer two to give you a comparison. So in terms of how many we ran over that first summer. In the fall, when we went university-wide, you know, taking out, you know, those that are less than 5 enrollment, independent study sections, all those kinds of things, you know, 5,700, you know, sections. Here's the total possible evaluations that were out there. We ended up with a 63% return rate. Our provost has set a goal of having 70% at the campus level. So we thought, okay, we're close. We didn't quite get there, but we're close. Spring, when we added the 3 pilot colleges, you can see the numbers went down a little bit because in spring we don't actually offer as many, but we went to 62% at campus level. Okay, but we added the next level of hierarchy, and therefore a lot of the surveys were getting longer. In this particular semester, there was one case of a course that was being taught in 3 different departments. So there were 3 instructors to be evaluated. The college had 10 instructor items, and the poor students ended up with like 59 questions when they opened up those surveys. So then this past summer, went down a little too, 39%. We had the hierarchy on here too. So the college level ones for the 3 pilot ones, plus then we added education. So there ended up being 4 colleges with questions. So you can see that even summer went down slightly when we added the next layer of questions. Summer 2 was a little better. We don't know exactly why, but summer 2 was a little better in terms of overall. And then this past fall, down another notch. So see, we're going the wrong direction. We're going 63, 62, 61. And again, as a reminder, this is when we had 7 colleges now with questions and potential of multiple instructors. And in this case, the business school came back to us and said, we want to add more questions for this semester. So they actually had more than they did the prior semester they had run with course evaluation. So that's to give you a sense of where we're unfortunately going the wrong way. What we have done for the assessment office is they did ask for the list of students who have not done any evaluations. It ends up that 33% of our students didn't actually bother to fill out any, which was surprising to us. So they're actually right now doing focus groups to understand why students aren't bothering to fill in the evaluation. They are also talking to the faculty who have the highest return rates to understand what they're doing, telling their students or whatever that's encouraging them to actually fill in the evaluations. So the one funny story they've already relayed to us is they talked to one instructor who said, well, all my students really hate me. So they all go in and fill in the evaluation. So the woman who was doing the survey, she's like, okay, I guess I won't ask any of these other questions. But, you know, often, you know, what we've found, at least anecdotally, is that the faculty who actually do make a concerted effort to tell the students what they're going to do with the results, that it's really important to them, they want to improve the course, those are the ones who end up with the higher return rates. When we used to run the kind of pilot system with UMBCtube, there were some departments that wanted, you know, when the survey was done, they just wanted to list the students who submitted so they could give them extra credit points, for example, or something. And so there were departments who tried to do that. Physics had actually done a little lottery. You know, the students who participated got put in a lottery to win $50, you know, gift certificate to the bookstore or something like that. So, you know, before we went to this system, there were kind of different departments trying different things if they were doing online. Yes?
I infer from the statement that 33% of the students didn't respond to any survey.
Correct.
And your response rate is 61%. That for nearly all students, either they participate or they don't participate. They either participate in all their evaluations or they just defect, right?
That seems like a probably good statement to make. I probably would ask the assessment office if they want to look at that. We can give them all the data if they want to do that cut. All they asked for right now was give us the list of those who didn't do any, and that's what we pulled for them out of the database.
Related question.
Sure.
Out of the sections, how many got 70% that you would then show the results?
I did not print out the one for fall. That's all on the website. It's not a huge number, is my understanding. I mean, there's a good amount there, but not as much as one would hope. So I would say,
Is that undermining
Yeah.
the, the reason for students to fill out the survey, that they can't get their peers to be doing it, and so then the data's...
right. That's why the assessment office has been trying to still keep the student government engaged to help raise awareness, make them understand, if you want to get more data to look at, you all need to be doing this so that more of we can see more, all of us can see more. So for example, the Diamondback earlier this week had an article where they interviewed the provost who basically expressed his disappointment in the return rate and that he really wants to hear from students. It's one of those articles, we really want to hear from you, and kind of encouraging them that he wants all the students to participate. So they did that kind of article, to try and help prompt the students. They put flyers out, they put them in the buses when it starts up, we put a link in the portal, we do all the things that would make sense to kind of make them aware. But that is a good question. I mean, I think we should go back and cut the data that way and see kind of where, if it probably is the case where they either do them all or they don't do them all. Yes?
What are the 6 questions that the student would see? And I'm concerned that these questions are just too irrelevant for anybody to bother.
Well, we had there were students on the committee who came up with the items. The students actually brought 13 questions and they were like, we can't put 13. The student ones are, the instructor was effective in communicating the content of the course. Course guidelines were clearly described in the syllabus. The instructor was responsive to student concerns. The instructor helped create an atmosphere that kept me engaged in course content. Based on the quality of my work in this course, the grades I earned were too low, appropriate, too high. Given the course level and number of credits, the workload was too low, appropriate, too high. How much effort did you put into the course? Little, moderate, considerable. And all of these are actually also on the website that I'm going to give you at the end. If you want to go back and look at all the questions, they're on the website. So. Yes?
I just have 2 quick questions
Sure.
that you might not have the answer to. One is, have you at all been keeping track of the costs of implementing this system at the university? Because that's one thing that we're interested in, is how much or less expensive this might be. We already have a system though, so I realize we're different from you.
Yeah.
And 2 is, I'm the chair of faculty affairs, and one of the concerns of faculty is the use of questions for P&T, or AP&T as you call it. Has there been any concern about that at your campus amongst faculty that?
I think those were addressed when it went through University Senate. I'm sure that's why it took 3 years for them to do it.
So by that time, all those things had kind of come out and been debated.
Yeah, and there was a committee that kind of looked at some of the rewording of those items too. But the task force that was formed actually did all the homework to come up with the 15 items that were given to us. So I think we're already at the end of time, but let me I'll skip over this because this is feels more like technology benefits, but there is cost savings obviously because you're not giving those paper stuff out anymore. So and there's rapid turnaround the results, and we are seeing better quality student comments because they're doing it the way they normally do, right? They're typing it in, and you can read them, right? You don't have to figure out the handwriting. We have challenges, as I said, with the return rate, so we are trying to understand better why the students who aren't participating are not doing that. Change management is a challenge for us as we change different features of the system, getting that information out to the department schedulers, to faculty, so that everybody understands what's the new thing they can do each semester. And then keeping multiple systems in sync. What we're discovering is, we're pulling from the student information system, which pulls from other systems, and which things are in sync and not in sync, and who gets access to what, and are we seeing all that data to pull it all in? So it's been kind of a learning experience to make sure we're all synchronizing also. This last time we've discovered, like, the MEAS program, the group that's out in, I think, in Rockville, they're aligned with College Park. They're part of our directory, but our system didn't have authorization to see that piece of the directory. So we had these faculty who were supposed to be evaluated, but since we couldn't see them, we didn't evaluate them. So, you know, there are pieces like that we're finding. And then obviously we don't want to have everything to be a manual process, so we're still working to that. And then the old usual for you, those of you in IT, the whole scope creep problem. As we deploy the system, and now they're going, oh, it'd be really great if they did this and this and this. And we're like, but we haven't even done the basic functional ones yet, you know? So we're dealing with that dynamic too, because new things are obviously cropping up as you deploy a system, and the departments are now saying, I want to do this now, and I want to do this now. We're like, but we haven't done these yet, you know, kind of thing. So it's managing that priority, and obviously their need to want things new in the system immediately, while we're like, but it's going to take time to develop it, so you can't have it next month, kind of thing. So that's a constant, I think, battle with any kind of IT development project that you work on. So, so let me just give you the one that's probably more important to you is the first one, which is where our assessment office has their website for this project. It has all the background. You can read all their write-ups that they did on analysis of the instrument. And the last fall's return rates are still up there if you want to get that Excel sheet and download it, and it shows per section, I think, what the return rate is if you want to kind of do a glance at that. And then if you're on the technical side, if you're interested in the Sakai tool, that's where that website is. So in terms of cost, obviously Sakai is open source, so it didn't cost us anything to get the software, but I have a full-time developer on the project. Part of my time as a manager, my counterpart's time in terms of managing from the reporting side. And we are currently hiring another developer. So I will end up with 2 full-time developers on the project.
Are you tracking, I noticed by semester you're looking at the participation rates. Are you also tracking the access rates to the results?
Actually, that's a good question. I know we have that data. We haven't actually put any of that up, but that might be another good thing to see,
whether
though.
that goes up or down.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Because if that's the incentive model, if that's not going up,
Right.
then
Yeah,
then that
right.
would be-
Whether that's
yeah.
relevant to students.
I'm afraid I'm gonna, Terry, did you have a question you wanna?
Well, I don't remember on the data display whether or not the whatever value for a particular question, for a particular instructor, does it have the standard deviation on that data also? So
Yes,
you can
the
see
mean and
whether
standard.
there's like a bimodal, you
Mean
can
and
kind
standard
of
deviation.
guess whether or not there was a group that
You can look at the frequency distribution to see that.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Right, you get the
I wasn't
frequency and you
here
get
whether or
the-
not there was, if there's the frequency distributions for, okay, great.
Let's see, that would have been this one, I think.
Oh, okay, right, I'm sorry, I missed that. Just noticed.
Yeah, so it's right there.
Right. And so, can you make the claim that that in general, the questions really are getting the correct output on the final numbers, that there isn't groups who are just out to get people, or, you know,
Oh.
big bimodals that,
Oh,
because the
that's
provost,
more of
like
an
you say,
assessment
the
office
provost
question.
is never- The provost is never gonna look at this detail, they're gonna look at the
Our
numbers
provost
at the
will.
end.
I think
But
our
not
provost
for-
will, but
Not for
yeah.
8,000 or
No, that's right.
15,000
He will, but
or-
I'm sure he will drill down for some, yeah.
He's gonna look at his particular school he's used to, or his department he came from.
Right, right.
And just the raw, or the end numbers at the end.
Yes, he has actually, when the evaluation is running those 2 weeks, we actually, I think the assessment office every day actually updates the participation rates, tells the department schedulers, you better go look at your courses, tell your faculty how you're doing. The provost gets updates so he can ping the deans that seem to be a little low. You know, so they're doing as much as they can from their end to prompt people in terms of how it's going and who needs to be prodded more or whatever. So, you know, So they're doing that in terms of like making sure all the colleges have gotten at least a certain rate and that kind of thing. So they monitor that. What I monitor is just the overall return rates, because my boss is only wondering whether the overall number is getting to 70 or not, right? So I just give him those numbers on a daily basis, but they run reports. They have access to reports so they can break it down by college and let the provost know, you need to go talk to such and such dean, so, yes.
I'm afraid we're going to have to call the time at this point. This session has been videotaped. If you were on the sign-up sheet, I'll email out when it is available, but it will be on the archive for this brown bag as well. Please join me in thanking Ellen for sharing what she's been doing.
And there's also email on, on this site. If you want to talk directly to the assessment office folks, I think there's an email address there that you can email them. But I'm also happy to answer if you want to contact me.